So good morning, everyone. This is Juana Amaria with Illinois Worknet, and we're about to get started on the webinar. If you are um, joining us via the broadcast, go ahead and put all your questions within the chat pod. This is the way that you can communicate with the rest of the webinar and all the other participants. And we've had some very lively discussions on here, so I would highly recommend that you participate. And lots of people in the previous webinar were helping one another and collaborating, so we thought that was wonderful. I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping items. If you have issues with the sound throughout the webinar, you can go ahead and call our conference call number and listen directly. If you do choose to do that, go ahead and mute your computer screen because you don't want to hear that playback. I'm going to go ahead and put the number on there just in case people have issues. Sometimes it does depend on your internet connection and what that sound sounds like. The other thing is we do have a file share at the bottom of the screen. And so you can go ahead and click on that file share, the file name, and save it to your computer. And that's a way that you can get all the documents that we've been presenting throughout the webinar. Now you also have chat pods and polling pods. And so with the polling pods, there's a scroll button that you could go ahead and scroll down, and that's how you get through the portions of the polling pod at the bottom. And so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and begin the webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We're very excited to actually do this series and very excited to have Denise on the webinar with us and collaborating together to bring these resources and this information to our local employers and those that are interested in starting their businesses. And so with that said, I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to Denise. And we have our pictures up here if you want to know what we look like. I know it's try to keep it as personal as possible, but sometimes cameras are very distracting, so we like to keep it simple. And I'm going to go ahead and scoot over and introduce Denise Ching, and she's with ICNC. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to her.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being on this really beautiful Friday morning. I'm sure everybody wants to be outside instead of in the office. But thanks for being on. Today is going to be an overview on how to start a business, and it's one of a series of webinars that we'll be presenting. So we're going to keep it relatively simple. We're not going to go into too much in-depth detail on each topic because those will be reserved for later webinars. Again, my name is Denise Ching. I work at ICNC, which is easier to say than the Industrial Council of Near West Chicago, but that's what it stands for. We're a nonprofit organization on the Near West Side. We're about 4 blocks north of the United Center. And we do business development, economic development. We have an incubator that we manage that has about 110 small business tenants. And we provide free business services to neighboring businesses and our tenants. And we actually, as a small business development center, let me go back and say we have a small business development center here, and that's the office that I work in. We actually help companies all throughout the state of Illinois. It's just that there is a wide variety of SBDCs, that we say for short, located throughout the entire Illinois state and Chicagoland area. So we'll see anybody from anywhere, but if there's one closer to you, it might be more convenient for you. But if we go ahead and get started, again, this is going to be an overview of the essentials that go into a business, because typically what we'll see is, you as an entrepreneur are an expert in your individual area. You know a lot about food or coffee or manufacturing furniture, but maybe you don't know the basics about business. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is just some very basic concepts of business, so you can apply that to your product or your service that you're looking to bring to the marketplace. So we're going to focus on the business plan. I put in here in quotes that a business plan is a written document. It clearly defines the goals of a business, and it specifies the methods for achieving those goals. It should be fluid. It should be something that changes over time as the marketplace changes, as the economy changes, as you change as an entrepreneur, as the company grows. Your business plan should evolve with the overall business that's happening on a day-to-day basis. It also serves as a blueprint. As opportunities come up, you can always go back to your business plan and use it as a point of reference for entering those opportunities or maybe turning them down because they don't really match with what your goal is as a business. So do you actually need a formal written, 30, 40-page business plan? Well, yes and no. It really depends. If you are looking for any type of financing, whether it be through a bank loan or a micro lender or through an investor, you will absolutely have to have a business plan because that's going to be your way to communicate to people who have no idea who you are, no idea what you want to do, what your business is, and why they should fund you. Now, if you're not looking for outside funding, a business plan is more of a good idea. It's a good planning process. No one's going to ask to see your business plan as a customer, but it will help you to really think through the different pieces of your business, your marketing, your operations, your financial plan. So with that, all business plans really have these main sections. It has an executive summary, it has a business description, it has a product and service description, a marketing plan, an operational plan, and a financial plan. And so typically what you'll see is your executive summary is the shortest part of your business plan. It's usually written last because it's summarizing everything that's in the plan. Your business description is going to be relatively short and to the point. Your product and service description also will be relatively short unless you're offering a lot of products or services. But you'll really see most of the detail in your marketing plan and then in your financial plan. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to go through each of these, and we're going to touch on each of these topics. And then, as I said earlier, each of these will be broken out into more detail in further webinars. So your executive summary, I don't know if anybody's heard of an elevator pitch. It's kind of, if you think of, if I was in an elevator with another person, you're probably in there for, 20, 30 seconds at the most. Would you be able to communicate what your business is about within that 20 or 30 seconds? That's what your executive summary is. It's just the most important, most relevant information about your business. So if somebody just wants to get a general idea of what you're doing and what you're about, that's your executive summary. It usually is at one page the most. It could be maybe a paragraph or two, but it's really what is the main idea of what your business is about. That's what your executive summary covers. The next portion is your business description, and this is really more of the nuts and bolts of how your business is going to be created legally. So it's talking about your legal status as a business, and you're going to talk a little bit about how you're going to form that and what you're going to use. There's a couple of things to consider when you are putting together your actual business legal entity. That comes around to how it's going to affect you in terms of liability. So if you have customers or vendors or employees who maybe become unhappy with you or unhappy with the company and they want to sue, how are you protected as an individual, as the entrepreneur and the founder? Are you protecting your personal assets from the business assets? So that's one consideration to keep in mind. And then the other one is tax. You are taxed on a business level and on a personal level, and how the money flows in and out of the business between you as an entrepreneur and the founder, and those tax implications those are the two main things that you're going to consider when you're putting together your business entity. And so I've listed here the most popular ones, or these are the basic business entities that you can choose from. So your most popular one that most people end up with is a sole proprietorship. That is just you on your own. You have full liability, full tax. It's the easiest one to do. It's basically free. And a lot of people actually start as a sole proprietorship just to kind of test out the waters. The next one that we'll see that is also very popular and is probably the most robust from what I've heard from lawyers and accountants is the limited liability company. So if you see a business name that has LLC in it, That's what it stands for, limited liability company. And that is a company or a business that has members and managers who manage the business. And it's pretty robust when it comes to protecting yourself from any type of personal liability, and is also a tax pass-through. The next one that we'll see is the S corporation. That is a less of a share, so you're limited in the amount of shares that you can offer as a corporation. I've heard it referred to as a single officer corporation. That's not necessarily what it stands for, but that typically is what people set it up for. So if you yourself are the business and you're going to assume the role of president, vice president, and secretary, a lot of people file as an S corporation. It has very similar protections as the limited liability company, and it's also about half the price when you go to register it. The C corporation is for larger, more complex endeavors. Usually that's someone who is looking to, maybe sell to investors and they want to sell the company, and that's how they bring those people in, is through selling shares. It's not the only way, but it is more complex and more expensive to set up. And every once in a while, we'll see somebody start a general partnership. It'll be two people, looking to start a business together, and they'll just draft a general partnership agreement amongst each other, saying who has what responsibilities in the company. And then the more complex, and we very rarely see these with the businesses that come in our office, are your limited partnership and your limited liability partnership. Typically, those are reserved for law firms where you have partners that have a certain vested interest and not. But those are the basic entities you can choose from. It is recommended that you speak with a lawyer, that you speak with an accountant who can really advise you on what would be the best option for you as an entrepreneur in your particular industry and in the particular marketplace that you're going into, so that you have the proper protection. So after your business description, you're going to go in and you're going to talk about what your product and services are. And with that, you're going to talk a lot about the benefits that your product and service offers, and you want to start to highlight what your value proposition is. And a lot of this also goes into marketing and branding, but really, what is it that makes you special? Are you solving a pain point in the marketplace for a particular type of customer, and that's why your product and service is valuable, and that's why you need to be brought into the marketplace. And I listed a couple of examples here for a value proposition, because there's a couple of different ways to go about it. And if you look at the low cost, someone who comes in as a low-cost alternative, usually the way you make money is to have a very high volume. And a good example of that is like a Walmart or a dollar store, where you can get your product, or your product is sold at the cheapest price, and the way that you make money is by driving a high volume of that product. Another way to enter the marketplace is through a high quality. That's where you're usually selling less products, or you have less services to less people, but because of the very high quality that you're offering, you're charging a premium price. That would be like your Ferrari. I don't know how many Ferraris are sold in a year, but it's not that many. It's not as many as a Ford. But you're definitely paying a premium price for a premium product. Another one would be like a newly available. This is where a lot of your technology would come in, where you have the latest, greatest technology that's available. That's where you're selling to the early adapters, those people who have to have it because they're new and there's not that many available because it is so new. Another one is convenience. That would be like your McDonald's or your Starbucks, where it's on every other corner, and so you tend to go there. You may like it. It may not be your absolute favorite, but because it's so convenient and it's right there, wherever you are, you tend to go there and use their services. And then another one would be a best value. So you're not necessarily the very best with the highest premium quality product or service. You're certainly not the lowest, where you're just barely getting something out there, but you're a very good value. That's like your Hondas and your Fords when you think of cars. That's maybe your Dominic's grocery store. You're not a Whole Foods where you have a premium product. You're not an Aldi where have the lowest price product with no services, but you're right in between. But you're offering a good value for your money. And so a lot of businesses who are just starting out, because you are small in your scale and what you can actually offer and bring to the marketplace, if you fit in through usually what's called a niche market, and you come in with either that high quality or newly available, maybe you are a lower cost because you are a little bit smaller and you're really targeted, it's usually a really good way for you to bring in your product or service to the marketplace. And so this would go into your marketing plan. This is probably going to be the largest portion of your business plan if you're actually going to write the business plan. It's probably where you should put the most thought behind your business is really how are you going to get your product out into the market? And the first question you want to ask yourself is, who is my target market? Who is going to buy my product or my service? Is there a market for my product or my service? And as a new business coming into the marketplace, having a relatively small, customized target market can actually be to your advantage because you can really customize your product or service to them and penetrate that smaller market and then grow from there, versus maybe trying to capture, 1% of the China market. We have a couple of companies that are exporting and looking to bring their products and services to, foreign markets. And that can be a common pitfall to just think, well, if there's a billion people and if I only get 1%, it's just much too broad to try to go there. But if you really target your market down to who really is going to buy your product or service, it can make you much more successful when you're starting off and you're small. You're also going to want to identify who your competition is, who's already offering the product or service that you're doing, who has an alternative use for what it is that you're bringing to the marketplace, and how are you going to position yourself against the competition. That kind of leads into the next point. But you want to actually identify those specific companies. If your competition is Starbucks because you want to bring a new coffee to the marketplace, then you want to identify that. You want to say who they are, what they do, maybe the size of their company, and then how you're going to position yourself for success against Starbucks. And that, again, goes into the position. What is your value proposition? What makes you different? What makes you unique in the marketplace? That's where your branding comes in. What is it that's going to make you stand out against everybody else? And I used this example yesterday when we had this webinar. We have a coffee company. Actually, we have a couple coffee companies in our incubator. One of them won SBA Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, and that was Crop to Cup. And what they do, what makes them different from a Folgers or a Maxwell House, maybe your lower end that you would buy in a grocery store, or your Starbucks or your Dunkin' Donuts, which is a more mass branded coffee, is they actually go and they negotiate directly with the farmers in Uganda and some other African countries. So they're able to bring the highest cost, or they're able to bring the highest price to those farmers, and they actually allow you as the consumer to meet them via a video on their website, through different coffee cards that they have posted along with their coffee. It's on their bags, so you can meet your farmers. One of their taglines is "Never take coffee from a stranger," and they just started putting their coffee in a new drink called Bean to Body. They actually share a space in our building, and they have like a canned milk coffee drink. It's sold in Whole Foods and a couple other places, and you can actually scan by the barcode on their can, and it'll take you to the website for Crop to Cup with a video of the farmer, so you can actually see the farmer that you're buying the coffee from that you're drinking right then and there. And so it's all about free trade and certified coffee and transparency and all kinds of stuff, and they've been very successful so far with their business. Another one is a coffee roaster. They were featured on NBC5 last Sunday, where they have actually a coffee roaster from like the 1930s from Denmark, and it's cast iron versus stainless steel, and you're able to get a much more high quality flavor when you're roasting the coffee. He tells me all this stuff. We go visit him a lot. I love coffee. So he is developing coffee flavors through his roasting for a very high quality, high consumer, who is really into coffee, a coffee connoisseur. The next thing you want to think about then, once you kind of figured out how you want to brand yourself and what your value proposition is and how you're going to compete in the marketplace and go after your target market, is how you're going to promote yourself. How are people going to know that your product or service is available? Where are you going to get yourself out there? And so with that, you also need to consider your pricing. How much are you going to charge for your product or service? And we'll talk a little bit more about this when we go into the financing portion of your business plan. But you want to start to understand what your margins are. And that's where you just take into account how much does it cost to make your product or service, and then how much can you charge in the marketplace? What are people willing to pay or not willing to pay for your product or service? And then you want to kind of price yourself appropriately so that you make a profit. And then the last step is to think about, well, once you kind of figured out all this marketing behind your product and service and you're going to make it, is how are you going to actually deliver it to to your customer? Are you going to sell online? Are you going to have trucks come up and pick your product? Are you going to sell through retail stores? Are you going to have a direct sales force? All of those go into that, answering those questions about your location and your distribution. Are you going to have a retail store? So once you've finished your marketing plan, you want to touch into your operational plan. And that is really kind of like your nuts and bolts, your everyday, who's going to run the business, who's going to be there taking the orders, who's going to be there to actually make your product, who's going to be there to see customers, what are the hours that you're going to operate, are you going to have employees? And a lot of people, when they're starting a business, they're not necessarily going to have employees. It's going to be probably just you and maybe your partner. But it would be a good idea to start thinking about employees. And once you hit maybe certain milestones, maybe when you hit a certain sales threshold, like once you reach maybe $100,000 in sales, you'll need to hire on a customer service rep, or you'll need to hire on an administrative assistant. Um, and so thinking about that in advance and kind of writing a very bare bones job description of the type of positions that you will start to create can really help you plan for those next steps as you grow your business. And then you want to also account for, how are you going to keep track of the finances? Are you going to use QuickBooks? Are you going to use Excel? Are you going to hire an accountant to do your bookkeeping for you? Those are all very important questions to consider, how you're going to actually account for the financial transactions of your business. Your operational plan is also going to address any type of regulations that will impact your business. Typically, you'll see that a lot if you are looking to do anything in food. There's sanitation requirements. There are codes that you have to be up to code on with health and sanitation. If you're doing anything that impacts the environment in terms of air, if there's anything like if you're working with chemicals that are flammable or combustible, there's all kinds of different types of regulations that you'll have to keep in check if you're going to be working with those things, to make sure that your business is safe and that consumers are safe. You'll talk about your hours of operation. Are you going to have a retail store where people actually can come in? So what would be your hours? Are you a restaurant, where people are going to actually physically come into the store, or are you going to be virtual? You just kind of want to talk about your hours of operation and whether you'll have a physical location or not. A lot of people don't have a physical location. They're just operating virtually. Maybe you're just working out of your home, and that's completely fine. And that's fine to actually put that in your operational plan and to try to keep your costs as low as possible until you actually need to rent that physical space. So after you kind of address all those operational questions, then you would go into your financial plan. And this is usually where a lot of people get stuck. And the reason being is because, to be quite honest, you're just making things up. You don't know how much it's going to cost. You've never operated this business before. So how would you know how much rent is? How would you possibly know what insurance is? How would you know how much it's going to cost you to buy wholesale the clothes that you want to sell retail in your store? You're not going to know how much it's going to cost to import that coffee from Africa and then sell it to the cafe around the corner. But it's absolutely essential that you start figuring out that information. And so your financial model really is, how are you going to make a profit with this business? Um, when you start doing that, what you're going to end up doing is what's called those financial projections. And there are three basic worksheets that you're going to do. Your statement of cash flows is really, if you think of balancing your checkbook just on a personal level, that's what your statement of cash flows does. You're going to indicate how much money you think you're going to make each month in sales, just your gross sales. So if you bring in $1,000 in sales, in the month of May, you're going to put that at the beginning of your cash flow statement. And then underneath that, you're going to list all your expenses. And then at the bottom, you'll have a net. So you'll either have, you'll break even, or you'll have less money, or you'll have more money, and that just carries over from month to month. And basically what you do is you project out if you think your sales are going to grow at a certain percentage over the next couple of months and the next couple of years. You would project those um, the revenues and the expenses over that period of time. The next one that you're going to project is what's called an income statement. It's also known as a profit and loss. It's very similar to the statement of cash flows, but it's usually done on an annual basis, whereas your cash flow is done on a monthly basis. And your income statement is going to show exactly that. It's going to show what income is coming in, and it's going to show the cost of those sales. So if you are buying things that have some type of variable expense, meaning you have that expense because you had a sale, it's going to show your gross income, and it's going to show your net income by then showing all of your expenses, your payroll, your rent, your insurance, your utilities. Um, and then at the end, it's going to show your net income and if you had a profit or a loss. The next one is a balance sheet. Your balance sheet shows your assets and your liabilities, and it shows the true net worth of your business once you subtract those out. And you're also going to project that over the next 3 to 5 years. So your capitalization strategy, really there's about three ways to fund your business. The first way is to just do it yourself. Use your personal savings. Start getting some customers. Use the money that you've made by selling to your customers and fuel your growth that way. Another way is to use small business loans. Usually those are through banks using an SBA guarantee, where the SBA does not directly lend to small businesses. What they do is they provide guarantees to banks. And so banks elect to be SBA preferred lenders. And so what you would do as a small business is you would go to an SBA preferred lender. You would apply for a small business loan. And being that you are maybe in the startup phase, which would mean maybe you're not already in operations, or you are in operations but you haven't been operating for more than 2 or 3 years, what they'll do is they'll automatically do it as an SBA guaranteed loan. And so if they're lending you money, what the bank is going to do is they're going to go to the SBA and they're going to ask for a guarantee. So if in case you as a business would default on the loan, the SBA would pick up the remainder of that amount. So if you defaulted, the SBA would pay that back. And that's what an SBA loan is in essence. There are also some micro lenders who also lend to small businesses. And then the other one would be to actually try to get some equity investors where they're putting in some money and in return they're getting a percentage of the ownership of the company. And so the next thing that you're going to want to do, and this is a little bit different than projecting out your financial statements, is you want to have a detailed list of your startup costs. So these are things that you're going to have in order to start your business. It's the office equipment, the computers, maybe the vehicles, the supplies, maybe you're starting inventory. It's your initial registration fees, maybe some original attorney and CPA fees. It's a detailed list of all the things that you need to actually get your business up and running and off the ground. And it's usually costs that you have at one point. It's just at that one point of starting your business. Now, some of them might be ongoing, but you're just going to list the ones that you need just to get started, and that's going to be your list of your startup costs. And that's what you're going to use if you are looking for any type of outside funding, is to show them this is what my initial startup costs. And you want to indicate whether you're going to pay for those yourself through your own self-funding, or if that's what you're looking to get the loan for. So once you've addressed your financial plan, I've listed some of these licenses and registrations. This is where you actually would set up your business. So if you're looking to start as a corporation or LLC, that is the website for Illinois Secretary of State. CyberDrive Illinois, it's under Business Services. You would go on there. You can file your articles of incorporation or your limited liability agreement on their website. You can pay the fee. It'll direct you whether the name that you're thinking of using for your business is taken or not, and you would be good to go. You would have that all set up. Once you register your business, then you would go to the IRS, irs.gov. That's where you would get your federal tax ID. So that's like the Social Security number for your business. That's where you're going to pay your federal, your state, and your local taxes through. If you're opting to work as a sole proprietorship, the state of Illinois requires you to file an assumed name certificate if the name of your business is not your first and last name. So I could start a business, Denise Ching, doing business as Denise Ching. Maybe I do like virtual assisting. I do some office for people, offsite. I could certainly do that. I wouldn't need a assumed name certificate because I'm just doing business under my own name. But let's say I wanted to sell shoes, and I want it to be, Soul Tree Shoes. Then I would need to get an assumed name certificate because the name of the business that I want to use is not my first and last name. So because I live in Cook County, I would go through the Cook County Clerk's office. It's about $50. It takes about a month because what you do is you go and you fill out an application. Then you have to publish a legal notice in some type of newspaper. Usually the least expensive one is the best route to go. You publish that for 30 days saying that you want to have the right to use this name for your business. And then once you've proven that you've done that, then they issue you the assumed name certificate. And it's very similar amongst the other counties. As you just go through that county's clerk. The fees might be a little different, and how it actually looks might be a little different, but it's still the same process, and it's still required no matter what county you are in the state of Illinois.
Denise, if I could just jump in for a second. I know that a lot of people are going to have questions on this, so would you just, kind of break it down in the first thing you do is file with the Secretary of State, or the first thing you do you file with the IRS? Kind of, like a guidance approach to the recommendations that you have here on this. Like, 'cause I know a lot of people ask, and a lot of people will be from different counties or whatnot, so if you could just really kind of give them an idea of which one to do first.
Sure, absolutely. So the first step is to create your legal entity. So if you're doing a sole proprietorship, that's to go through your Cook County or to go through the county's clerk office to file your assumed name certificate. That's giving you the right to use that name. If you're deciding to be a corporation or a LLC, that's going through the Secretary of State, and you're reserving the right to use that business name. So that's your first step. Also, if you want to do a general partnership, you draft a general partnership agreement and you choose that name. The next step then is to go to the IRS and get your tax ID. So if you think of it as it's like having a baby. You're not going to try to file for a Social Security number before you actually have your baby and you name them, because you have to have a name and a thing attached to that number. So the first step is to create the business entity. The next step is then to get your tax ID.
That's such a great analogy.
Yeah, it is, but it's true.
I
And
want to use
so
that from now on.
you have your baby first, and then you get the Social Security number. So you have your business first. You create the entity, and then which is a lot less painful and takes less time. And then you would get the tax ID. And then after that, then that's when you do all the kind of ancillary types of registrations and permitting, because those are going to be so varied depending on where you're located, depending on the type of business that you're doing, depending on what sector you're in. Those are kind of like all, it really, really depends on that type of business that you're setting up. But those two are the first ones that you're going to do. Create your business entity, get your tax ID.
Thank you so much. And I know that there's some questions here about nonprofits and how they go about that, and I just want to let them know that, we are covering for-profits in these series, and we can definitely point you into the right direction, but that's what the focus will be so that people know.
Okay. So I just listed two other ones at the bottom of the slide there. So the Illinois Department of Revenue Um, their website is where you would get your sales tax registration. It's also where you would get a reseller ID. So kind of, again, depending on where you're falling in terms of your industry and the level that you're at in terms of a marketplace. If you're going to be selling direct to consumers and you're required to collect sales tax because you're selling a product, then you need to get that sales tax registration. If you're buying wholesale and you're selling wholesale, or you're part of a distribution channel, then you should get a reseller ID because you're not selling directly to consumer. And so it really depends on where you're going to fall in those. And so we kind of leave those to individual one-offs with businesses. And then if you're operating in the city of Chicago, there is a limited business license that you would apply for. It's about $250 every 2 years. But there are other ones that really, it depends on the type of business that you're starting, that you may need to get this, you may not. And so people like us who work at a nonprofit doing small business development, we can really help you answer those questions because sometimes they're not always the most helpful, unfortunately. But they do have a resource center there at their Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Department. It's located on the 8th floor of City Hall. And they have a wizard actually on their website, City of Chicago website. If you go to their department page, they also have like a little tutorial that'll walk you through. If you answer a bunch of questions, it'll tell you what licenses and permits are required for the type of business that you're thinking of starting.
And we'll show you how to find a location near you after Denise finishes presenting. So for those of you that are, not in the Cook area or in the Chicagoland area, you can find various other small business development centers in your neighborhood that would be able to assist you as Denise can here for those that are locally located in the Chicagoland area.
Mm-hmm. So just to point out a couple of resources, and this is not exhaustive. There are so many resources out there for small businesses. But small business development centers, we are a part of the SBA. So the SBA has, all these lending programs, and they have a lot of other things that they do for small businesses. Small business development centers are one of them. And so we're located throughout the entire state of Illinois. And we meet with people individually to go over, problems with your business or to give you advice in any area of, finance, marketing, operations, licensing and permitting, developing employees or getting employees. And we do our services for free. We also have classes and workshops and whatnot. Women's Business Development Center, there's one downtown in the Loop, and they work with women entrepreneurs. They also have a certification department there. So if you're looking to get certified as a women business enterprise, they help you with that. They also have a child care program. So if you're looking to start a child care center or a daycare center, they have a lot of resources there to help you with that. And then SCORE, which stands for the Service Corps of Retired Executives. SCORE Chicago is located in the SBA office at the Ogilvie train station there in that building. And they also will meet with individual business owners who are looking to start a business or who are in business and need advice. And kind of how they're set up is you have someone who maybe has been an accountant. They've worked as an accountancy all their life. And so they have a lot of industry knowledge. And so you would go and you would meet with them if you have questions about accounting, or maybe you have questions about insurance. And so you would go and you would meet with an executive who's been in insurance all his life, and they can give you, kind of the nuts and bolts of what to look for and how to get the type of insurance that you need. And they also do workshops and seminars as well. But yeah, so there's a wealth of resources out there for you as a potential entrepreneur, as a small business owner, for free or at a very low cost to help you grow and build your business. And so just really kind of to go on to the next steps is, just start working on your business plan. Start thinking about those questions. Who's my target market? What is my value proposition? What am I going to bring to the marketplace that's unique and different? What kind of pain point am I solving with my product or my service? And start looking at the feasibility. Can I make a profit from this? Will I be able to price myself, have my costs low enough and my price high enough that I'll be able to make money from this business? Do I have capital? Will I need to find capital? how much do I need to get started? And definitely look back at those resources because we're here to help you, really find those resources and that capital that you need to get your business started. So that's pretty much it for this presentation, and we'll kind of open it up for some questions.
Absolutely. And actually, before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and show everyone how to get all this stuff. So the first thing that I wanted to just point out really quickly is that everything that Denise was talking about, and we've been kind of working together to put these resources online for everybody, can be actually found on Illinois Worknet on the business pathway. And so that business services flyer that you have in your file share gives you direct links on how to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and just um, do a quick demo of how you can find that. So I'm going to open this up and share my screen, and Denise, let me know when you can see my screen. And everyone can actually click on the full screen to be able to view this if you need to have it be a little bit bigger. So let me know when you can see that I'm sharing. Okay, very good. So the website obviously is illinoisworknet.com, and you notice that we have various different audiences that we assist, and the two at the bottom are the key sector. These are key sector industries within the state of Illinois, and I sent you a link on that in the chat pod. And these are the industries that we focus on. By no means does that mean that we don't help other businesses, but that's what we tend to do a lot of our work on. And the other part is the business pathway. And this is especially for businesses, and the way we focus on this is recruit, train, and develop. And you can go ahead and click on illinoisworknet.com/business, and you'll get to this page. You'll notice you can create an account at the bottom. And also, what I wanted to point out was, one, the way you can find Denise and many other small business development centers is by clicking that button, Find a Location Near You. So if you didn't see that, I'm going to go ahead and back up. It's right here on the right-hand side on the home page. Click here to find a location near you. So what I'm going to do is you can either pick it on your state map, um, or you can go ahead and do an advanced search. I'm going to go ahead and, you notice it's clicked for businesses. I'm going to do my website, my zip code. And what you'll notice is that it immediately brings up all the different, you'll notice there's 2 pages, all the different centers available. So you'll have the center on Halstead, you'll have the Chicago Workforce Center, on South Pulaski, you'll have the Chicago Entrepreneurship Center, um, Hispanic Entrepreneurship Center, and so on and so forth. And this is Denise's center if you want to see what they have. And if you click on the Show and Hide services, you'll see the type of trainings that they offer. So before you go there, you know what they're offering so that you can be assisted for the right service. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out is all of these resources that we've mentioned. If you click on Develop, you'll notice that you have a couple of different options here on the left-hand side. The first one is Business Resources. All the templates that Denise talked about, all the various links are available here in a very easy guided approach. And so, for instance, all the financial statements, business owner's guide, understanding lending, small business marketing plan, all of this is from the SBA. We're not recreating the wheel here. It's just ways for you to get what you need. So they're PDFs. You click on that. So you just click up at the top. You can do an assessment tool. Somebody was saying that they need ideas on how to start a business, and so we have a whole link here on cool business ideas. And this page is also going to be where you see the archived webinars. So one is starting a business, 2 is getting the help you need. Someone asked about grants. You can click on alternative funding and see all the grants that are available for small businesses, because the SBA, money does run out. They can't be everything for everybody. So it walks you through some of the various different alternatives to funding, how to get your tax ID, how to get your business name, and so on and so forth. And by the way, all those organizations and centers that Denise mentioned, they're all available here under Business Assistance. So as she talked about the Women's Business Development Center, we have a Veterans Business Outreach Center for those that are veterans, SCORE, so on and so forth. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we have business service teams all over the state of Illinois, and what I'd like to do is actually go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing now. A lot of them are on the webinar, and so if they can go ahead and just put their information and their contact. When you find those centers on Find a Location Near You, you will be able to locate a team, and these are teams that are paid for through the Workforce Investment Act that are there to assist businesses. And so I want all of my business service team members to go ahead and just put their name and their email in the chat pod so that you can reach out to one another. And I know a lot of them are on from Lake County and so on and so forth. So this is a great opportunity for, one, to collaborate with everyone, and then two, to be able to access the resources that you need, because there's a lot of great programs out there. The last thing is I saw that a lot of you were really helping one another and collaborating, and I'd love for you to just continue to take this conversation, and not continue it online. And so we're going to go ahead and give you a link to the Illinois Worknet LinkedIn group, and so you can go ahead and continue these discussions. And so lastly, a lot of you asked about when do we find out about future webinars, and how do we stay connected. And the way you do that is by starting an Illinois Worknet account. We send out all our notices through the portal. We have a professional writer that writes about a lot of the topics for business that month, and so on and so forth. So it's a great resource for you. So that's the way you find out about the webinars. And so we're going to go ahead and switch over to the Q&A. And we have a couple of different pods on here. One, we'd like to know what kind of industry you're in, what kind of services you're interested in, and then where you are within your process. And then we have a list of future Start a Business webinars and what is most important to you, or what you need the most assistance with. And based on these results, we'll go ahead and in our follow-up email, let you know what the upcoming webinar is for small businesses. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and answer some questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat pod. And for those of you on the phone line, I'm going to open the floor. So if you want to ask via the conference
The floor
line,
mode is on. To request the floor, enter
you can go
star,
ahead
then pound.
and click star pound and ask your question. So we're ready for you whenever you are, I guess. Boy, everybody's quiet on this one. We were bombarded yesterday with all the questions.
If I could do just a quick plug for some events that we have coming up. On Thursday, June 9th, from 6 to 7:30 at ICNC, we're going to be offering an alternative financing workshop, where we're going to have some panel speakers talking about different ways to raise money and find money to grow your business. So if anybody's interested, I'm going to go ahead and put our website over on the Q&A. It's on our upcoming events. It's actually at the bottom of the page. But that would be a really great workshop for people to come and just talk to other entrepreneurs and some service providers who provide alternative financing. And next Thursday, on May 26th, we're having a women's networking event at a new clothing store. She designs and sews knitwear. Her name is Heidi Hess, and she has Heidi Hess Designs over on Halstead and Lake. And we're having a women's networking event next Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30. And I should say these are all free, but if you go to our website, you can register. That way we know how many people to plan for. But we would love to have you guys come out and get some information and network and have some fun.
Absolutely. And I think that's the greatest benefit with these types of webinars is that people, one, get exposed to one another, get exposed to some of the resources that they have, and and collaborate. I think, for instance, we have our business service teams on here. This is a great way for them to reach out to the people that need help. You have individuals that didn't know that any of this existed and wouldn't even know where to start to get all this together, from like the licenses and registrations. I mean, I'm sure, as Denise was mentioning before, you can spend hours and hours on this. Um, so this is a great opportunity for everyone to kind of get the ball rolling. And so we're going to spend the next 5 webinars or so on the various topics, depending on what your interest is. So. So Cassandra writes, writing a business plan makes me nervous. I don't know why. Is there um, step-by-step help available?
Sure. I think if you use, like if you're just, by yourself in your office or in your home, if you do a Google for business plan and you just start looking through some samples, I think that can help give you ideas. We use an outline here where we break it out in the major sections, and then underneath each section we have a list of questions. And so what you can do is you can just kind of basically answer each question behind it. And I think I saw on Juana, on your links, that there was a guide
Yep, I just
that
pasted it
someone
in
could
there.
connect. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we do is we just have a list of questions under each topic, and we ask people to just go ahead and answer those when you're writing them.
Um, the next question is, Denise, does a company have to have a reseller ID to sell wholesale? Where can I find out more info on this? That's a great question, Dan.
Sure. So you would get the information on the Illinois Department of Revenue's website. I would recommend using their search tool because it's not the most intuitive website. Um, Actually, most government websites aren't. It just has so much information. But if you use their search tool, it's actually pretty easy. You're not required to have it, but it's good to have it because then you'll save yourself paying sales tax. So that's why you got it. You got it to save yourself from having to pay sales tax on your product. And if you are buying, some wholesalers will require you to have it because you'll need to show that ID number in order to buy from them at the wholesale price.
Right. Um, and that, you have that within your license and registrations links.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next question is, what is the cost of basic registrations and licenses?
So the LLC, to register as an LLC, it's $500 through the Secretary of State. A corporation is, well, the S corporation is about $250. And then a city license, a limited city license, is $250 for 2 years. With an LLC and a corporation, you do have to file annually with the Secretary of State with your annual report, and those, I know the corporation is $150. I'm not sure how much the LLC one is, but you would do that every year.
Very good. So what if they were a sole proprietor? What
There's
what would they do?
there's no fee unless you do the assumed name certificate, which in Cook County is $50, and I don't know how much it is in the other counties, but I do think it's less.
Right, because we like to milk people for all they're worth in Cook County.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And yes, to answer the questions some of the people are posting on here, all of these resources are available on the Business Pathway on Illinois Worknet under Develop, and I've posted those links. And all of this, if you're worried about how am I going to get this information, you're going to have all the information you need on how to access this stuff in the follow-up email. So we'll send that out to everybody so they know how to start accounts, how to get the archived webinar, how to get to all these templates that we have, and then what the topic will be for the next webinar. So far, looking at the list here, I think that we're still going to do, they beat us. Okay, so strategies for finding capital to starting a business. So it'll be either between that and licensing and registration. So that's the reason you could only pick one, is because that's the one that we are working on for the next webinar. And so we'll let you know when that date is, and hopefully you can continue to join us on this webinar series. We have one more question. Is there financial aid available to get an LLC or a place to get started for less than $500?
Not that I'm aware of. You can get usually free assistance for the lawyer. So if you wanted to have a lawyer draft it for you, sometimes you can go through some pro bono legal services.
And I posted that link on there for them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But for the actual fee, no, not that I know of.
And then Mark asks, I'm doing tech support as an independent contractor. My employer suggested I set up an LLC or an S Corp. I'm planning to do so, but have an idea for a product. Could I house both businesses under one company name or one corporate structure?
Sure. You can have, you can offer multiple products and services and they don't necessarily have to relate under one business.
Mm-hmm. It's called McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
They do the same thing. They're actually real estate, so.
That's true.
Yeah. How long does it usually take to get financing? I think that really depends on the plan.
Yeah.
That depends on, how all your papers are in order and your pitch and your description and who you have on your books, right? So if you want to
Yeah.
give them.
So if you're looking, well, I'll just use a loan, for example, because it's probably the most structured. So if you were looking to apply for a small business loan, if you have your stuff ahead of time, so let's say you go in, you fill out the application with the bank, you have your business plan, and you have with your financials in there projected out for the next 3 years, you'll probably get a credit decision within, a couple of days, probably within 2 to 3 days. And it'll be a conditional credit decision, yes, but, so they might ask you for more information. As it goes through an underwriting process, which can take anywhere from, 1 week to several weeks, they might ask you for more information. And the sooner you can get it in, the quicker the process will go along. So you're probably looking at, if you get approved, on a short end would probably be 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. On a longer end, it could be maybe 2 or 3 months. But usually once you get past that 60 days of being in the pipeline on the bank side, they need to close the loan. So you'll either not get the loan and you'll have to reapply because maybe you weren't able to provide sufficient information to close it, or the loan, you'll get the money and it'll close.
That's awesome. And I also have someone posted on Share Your Best Practices. Andrea mentions networks and events and meetings um, touching in the industry and niche that you're interested in. Also be aware of certifications in your industry. There may be financial assistance available through the IBS or other sources to get these certifications. And so that's a very good point because you don't know what you'll need to become legit, really, until you start doing your homework and your market research. Bridget, we mentioned, we went through that whole demo of what type of grants are available under alternative funding, so go ahead and click on that.
So that's a great question, and we get that question a lot. And so I'm going to say yes, but it's a yes with a giant asterisk. Grants are very limited for businesses because what they are is, they're being offered by government entities most of the time. And so you have to think of why would the city of Chicago or why would the state of Illinois give me a grant to start my business? Because they don't have that much money to just directly give out to people and not get paid back. So usually these grants are targeted around very specific initiatives, and it's usually around jobs because jobs create tax revenue, and it's usually around property or it's around a particular type of industry that they're trying to grow. And so a lot of the grants that we see, we administer a state grant called ETIP. It's a Employer Training Improvement Program. I think that's what it stands for.
Yeah.
We say. Where you can get 50% of the cost back for helping to upgrade the skills of your employees. So you do have to be a company residing in the state of Illinois. You have to have employees. And there are certain trainings that qualify, certain that don't. But it can be a sizable amount of money to get back if you're spending money on your entire employee workforce to get trained in a particular health
Absolutely.
industry or a technology, but you can get 50% of that back. Another grant that we work with a lot in our neighborhood, and it depends on where you're located in the city of Chicago, is SPIF, and that is a rebate grant that will help pay for building improvements. And so typically what we like to do with the grant question is we find out, where the business is located or where you're thinking of locating, what type of business you're starting, and then we'll kind of qualify you. We'll run you through, just some basic demographic
Eligibility.
type of steps, to see if you're eligible for different grants. But I am not aware of a grant that just helps you start a business. That would be more of like a business plan competition,
Mhm.
where you can just get money by submitting your business plan, entering a competition, and there's competitions all throughout the nation that you can enter. And that's just a pure monetary award to help you start your business.
Another thing for those of you that on this grant topic, there's various incentives as well, and this is what Denise was talking about. And you have your job creation tax incentive that's done at the end of June, so July 1, where you can get money for people that you hire. There are on-the-job training incentives where you can get up to 50% of your employees that you're training. You get your money reimbursed as a business. You pay up front, but it's just an option for you. If you were going to do that training, you can kind of get a deal. And so all of that is also available on the develop page. So there's an angel tax incentive for those of you looking to be angel investors or looking for angel investors. And so a lot of those resources I'm actually updating on the portal. And so there are options out there, but as Denise mentioned, they're very specific. And especially for those of you who are predominantly here to learn about starting a business may not apply until later, until you've already got the ball rolling. Um, Valencia asks if there's a template from market survey, for doing a market survey.
I not that I'm aware of. I think that's because surveys are usually, very specific, and you need to customize it to what information you're using. I know people use, and this is what we use. We use SurveyMonkey, and we use Constant
Yeah,
Contact if we're doing an online survey. We'll also do some paper surveys if we're going directly to meet with people. Um, but I'm not aware of an exact template. I think because you just have to customize it to what type of information you're looking for.
exactly. And something like SurveyMonkey is free if you have less than 10 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things you can utilize. There's a lot that you can do that isn't going to be a whole lot of money. You just have to take the time to be able to go and talk to people and do things that you're doing now, like participating in these webinars. You'll get a whole lot of information where at least you know where to start or you know where you need to continue to dig to be able to get to where you need to be. So we've already gone 3 minutes over. It's been that good. So I'm going to go ahead and thank Denise for being on and for being so gracious to participate in this, and we've signed her up for the next 5 months or so with all these questions. So we're very grateful to have her on. Obviously, she's a wealth of information, and we will follow up with all of you and let you know when the next webinar is and what the topic is, and hopefully you can join us. We'll start digging into the very specific topics and go through what you need to do to get started. So we appreciate your participation. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.